And good evening and welcome to another edition of the Davis and Watson Show here on Shoreditch Radio with me, Liam Davis.
And me, David Watson.
And it's very nice to have your company on this Sunday evening, the 26th of April. We've got a very packed show tonight. Just joining us shortly, we'll be launching our new Brit Down Under slot, where we'll be talking to former UK journalist Daphna Baram. We'll be talking to her very, very shortly. Also joining us, and who's in the studio right now, is comedian Daphna Baram. Daphna, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
We'll be talking in more detail to Daphna later on in the show. I should say to you, if you want to get in touch with us tonight, take part in the show, our text number is 07932 984242, 07932 984242. Our the Twitter, is at Davis Liam or at David at CAAAT. You can also tweet directly to the studio at Shoreditch Radio if you've got any thoughts, anything you want to talk about tonight as we're going along. I think a very good place to start, though, Dave, would probably be what we've just watched, and that was Arsenal against Chelsea.
Well, you speak for yourself, Liam. I actually wasn't watching it. I was otherwise engaged. But why don't you tell me about it? Arsenal 0, Chelsea 0. And,
close.
Yes.
Very close game.
Yes.
Neither team committed, I felt, as much as probably they could have, particularly Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Arsenal needed to win the game more than Chelsea needed to. 10 points clear now. So you
Should
have
be all
to say
wrapped
to
up.
yourself, Chelsea are getting closer and closer. They've got Leicester City on Wednesday night in the Premier League, and then Crystal Palace next Sunday. So if they win both those two games, they'll be champions. So
Is it worth betting the house on?
I think Leicester actually Wednesday night will be a very tough game.
Oh,
yeah,
You think they
'cause I
might
think
get
Leicester
five in a row?
I think Leicester have found a little bit of form.
But let's face it, if Chelsea lost at home to Leicester, who are still in the relegation zone, that would be a major disaster for.
It would. I agree.
Premier League pretenders.
But saying that, I
Championship.
think it will be a tough game. Leicester will want to try and win, of course, because they're desperate to stay up. Chelsea need 3 points to, I think, cement the title. But I think that'll be a close game. But off
You
topic,
going? Are you going?
not to Leicester.
Oh,
No. It's a long journey on a midweek night to Leicester. But I will be there for the Crystal Palace game next Sunday.
Okay.
But just off topic there a little bit, Dave. What do you think about Newcastle? Another home defeat yesterday.
I was watching Match of the Day last night, and I just felt that Shearer was speaking for pretty much every Newcastle fan that there is living on this planet. You know, as we were watching the game, especially their third goal, it was appalling. You know, just so he spoke for me. He pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Lack of heart, lack of commitment. You know, just not bothering to make the proper runs they needed to do, not bothering to get into the tackles. It's true some of the forward line made a bit more of an effort, but in defence and in midfield you didn't see the effort that was required. And John Carver seems to love the club a lot more than some of his players. So
Are you worried?
oh, of course, I think any Newcastle fan would be worried. And Shearer says that 1 point would be enough, possibly. I mean, it would at least stop the rot a little bit, wouldn't it?
Sunderland do have a game in hand, albeit away to Arsenal.
So
So
they're showing more fight than
I
Newcastle.
think Newcastle probably do need one more win, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't think a point might not just be enough. I think maybe 3 would certainly put an end to the doubt.
I think 2 draws would be enough. No, probably 2. Take us to 37 points would probably do enough. But if they stick with 35 points, losing all the rest of the games for the season, yeah, that might not be enough. But all the teams below are fighting.
They certainly
So
are.
we're not fighting. It's too bad.
Another notable sporting, if we like, milestone was reached this weekend. The retirement of 20 times champion jockey AP McCoy. Firstly, what a remarkable achievement to be 20 to complete your 20th championship as winner, leading jockey.
Yeah.
It brings to an end a fantastic career, which has seen him win all of National Hunt Racing's major prizes, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, the Champion Hurdle, the Grand National.
Has he won you a few quid?
He has won me a few bob over the years, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think you posed me a question off air earlier. Will we see his like again? Probably not.
No.
Or not for some time, I would have thought.
Well, there are other jockeys who've made similar headlines, Lester Piggott and Willie Carson over the years. Isn't he up to John Joe O'Neill? Isn't he up to the same standards as them, or weren't they up to his standard?
Well, it's unprecedented. 20 championships in a row. I mean, that does take some doing. I mean, I'm sure someone there will say, "Oh, well, he gets a lot of leading rides and all that," and he probably does. But then, I think that what's endearing about Tony McCoy is that he's treated the Cheltenham Festival exactly the same as he would an afternoon's national hunt racing at somewhere like Newton Abbot or Towcester or some, Hexham, some remote racecourse somewhere, So I think he's treated national hunt racing with the respect that probably it deserves, because it is a very tough way to make a living.
Yeah, well, you know a lot more about racing than I do, but yeah.
Daphna, are you into horse racing particularly?
Not particularly. Not particularly. I'm into football. But
You're into football,
yeah,
but not horse racing.
No, I started supporting a new club this year, Clapton FC. I didn't know about them before.
Clapton FC.
Yeah, do you know them?
The old spotted dog.
Yeah, they're brilliant, and they're very, very similar to my home team in Jerusalem, Hapoel Katamon Jerusalem. Very similar spirit. A small team, very lefty, very kind of old school.
What division are Clapton in? Are they in
they're in the Essex North League or something like that.
Essex Senior League, it is.
Yeah, Essex Senior. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So have you been a regular visitor to the old spotted dog
I've
this year?
been once this year, and then I went back to Jerusalem to report because Hapoel Katamon are very interested in getting into some relationship with Clapton FC.
Right.
And they're in a similar position that we have just. Katamon has just climbed up to the Liga Leumit, which is the second division, and we're very proud. We're very happy. And to celebrate, we've actually replaced our corner flags with the rainbow flag because we're very pro-gay and stuff.
Right.
That's great. It's cool.
It is. It's a very cool team, especially in the Jerusalem atmosphere of football that's dominated by Beitar Jerusalem. A lot of people are familiar.
Yep.
Very racist and kind of right-wing and violent team. So it's a good feeling to see that Katamon is thriving.
What's the ethnic makeup of the team in Jerusalem? Are they Katamon?
It's basically in a team that is located in West Jerusalem, but there are a lot of Palestinian fans, and there were over the years quite a few Palestinian players. Right. Beitar and the bulk majority of its fans object to the inclusion of Arab players in the team, whereas Hapoel Katamon raises a very anti-racist flag. They also have a very beautiful project of a neighborhoods league where kids from all schools in Jerusalem, religious, secular, Arab, Ethiopian, whatever, come and play, which is very nice. They have a football school, so they have a very kind of in the community attitude. They are a ray of hope in Jerusalem, where there are not many.
Very good, yeah.
And the good work of Clapton FC hopefully echoes that as well.
Yes, very much. I very much felt at home there. They sing the same songs, which are basically all sorts of revolutionary songs that probably were originally sang in Spanish, and they raise the same flags.
A visit to the old spotted dog is called for.
I think it is. I had a marvelous time there, and I actually went with one of my best friends who is not as lefty as I am. Is actually kind of turned to be central right, and he fell in love with the team. So this is it. We're going together now.
Wow.
Might convert him politically too, God knows.
A big fan of non-league football. Long way it continue. All right, we'll talk more to Daphna a little bit later on in the programme. We're going to touch base with her on a few things that she's up to around about 7:35. Off the back of that first break, we'll catch up with our Brit Down Under, former UK journalist and now working very much in the media in Australia, Daphna Baram. I caught up with her earlier this week, so stay tuned to the Davis and Watson Show here on Shoreditch Radio.
Hey, this is Rita Ora, and you're listening to Shoreditch Radio. Yes!
And welcome back to the Davis and Watson Show here on Shoreditch Radio. Beginning a new slot for us on the show. We're joining a new monthly slot. And the new monthly slot we're introducing this year, 2015, is called Brit Down Under. And our Brit Down Under is a former UK journalist, and she's sort of carving out a career for herself down under, and that is Daphna Baram. Alexandra, hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very, very good, thank you. I'm very, very good indeed. I think a good place to start would be, why Australia?
It's a lot warmer than Britain. Although that's a bit of a lie, because I decided to move to Melbourne, which is actually probably the most similar in weather conditions to Britain, so I made a bit of a rookie error there. No, it was about 5 years ago that I moved. Obviously, Britain was in a bit of a slump at the time, under a bit of a cloud of depression, money-wise, so I just thought, right, I'm getting out of here. So I left my job. I'd been a reporter for 3 years and decided to come over for a bit of a holiday with my brother because he was working out here. And, 3 months has turned into 5 years. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it's definitely been a fun ride. And Australia is obviously, it's a great country. It's a wonderful place to live, really good quality of life. So kind of haven't been drawn back to London yet. I need a bit more convincing.
I suppose we should just reflect really on what you did before you went to Australia. Now, you mentioned that you were a journalist and you spent some time, I think, on some local newspapers in Hertfordshire. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I used to work for News Quest. So I was one of the hearty little local reporters for St Albans Review, Watford Observer, Welwyn Hatfield Review. So yeah, that was basically the start of my career, which was a great way to get into journalism. Fantastic route to go through, especially sort of local journalism, honing all your journalism skills. And then, I've branched out a little bit since I've been here. But great way to start.
You mentioned, obviously, you've talked about Watford and St Albans, and I know that's areas that are quite dear to your heart. What was the best story you think you covered in those years? I mean, was there a really story that stood out across those 3 years that you really got your teeth into?
Oh, there's with local reporting, there's always a number of stories that you don't forget. What context are we talking? Are we talking ones that
I think in general, really. I think in any context, I think probably the one story that really stood out for you.
Probably we did a fundraiser for a little boy who had, I can't remember the name of the illness. I think it was some rare form of cancer, and he needed money to go over to Germany for treatment, and we held a number of fundraisers. And he and his dad came along, and, in the face of such a devastating illness, both he was only 6 or 7, and his father just never once stopped smiling. And obviously the St Albans Review was a big part of, this campaign to raise this money for him to go overseas and get the treatment that he needed in order to kind of survive this insidious disease. And that will be one that I will never forget, to be a part of such an overwhelming and touching campaign was amazing. And really, it just shows the strength of local papers and sort of community news almost. So it's one that I won't forget in terms of feeling completely a part of. Obviously in local news there's some hilarious stories that I've covered in the past, which I will also never forget. But honestly, that particular one was one that really stood out.
And of course, you said 5 years ago, what turned into a short holiday has turned into an even longer stay. Now, you're working in the media in Australia, and you do quite a varied role in your role in the media in Australia, in Melbourne, of course.
Yep. So I work for one of the TV networks out here. There's sort of 3 main big ones that monopolise that market. There's Channel 7, Channel 9 and Channel 10. I'm not sure what happened to Channel 8. So, yes, I work for Channel 7. I'm the online news producer. So I work for Yahoo 7. So obviously Yahoo's a global brand. And it's a bit of a partnership. So my job now is to make sure that I generate content for the TV network's website and social media pages, which is a fantastic job. It's working within social and working online is obviously extremely fast-paced. You're never kind of sitting around, dwindling your thumbs. It's go, 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 very fast-paced kind of working environment. So, it's definitely kept me on my toes.
Yeah. And, of course, one of the things that, of course, you do write is a blog. And I think the blog, I mean, we'll talk about it in more specific terms in a moment, but I think the original idea was it's sort of aimed at, I think, more towards women's lifestyle and that kind of theme. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right. So this is something that I write a blog called Kitsch Sister.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with my work. It's something that I do on the side. Obviously, being a journal, I enjoy writing. So yeah, this is something that I set up over a year ago. Set it up, wrote a couple of blogs, and then kind of left it a little bit abandoned. But actually, most recently, I've got a bit more time with my working patterns where I can actually kind of set aside some time and just put some thoughts to paper. I'm a bit of a whinger, so instead of whinging to people, I've kind of whinged to my blog. And there's just a lot of things that I've got a bit of an analyzer, I'm a bit of a people watcher. I love sitting back, sort of watching the world go by and then analysing it. So I thought, what better way than to share my thoughts by sort of generating a blog and trying to sort of stir up a bit of a following. Being a woman, it's more obviously focused towards women, but I'm sure that there's a few blogs in there that you guys will enjoy. Notably, potentially the Tinder blog. I don't know. It's worth having a little look through. But yeah, I mean, generally it's focused towards young women, sort of from about my age upwards. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a junk. It's why it's called Kitsch Sister. It's a a whole of an eclectic sort of combination of content. So varies widely.
And you've mentioned, of course, in the blog, I think your most recent blog that you wrote, or certainly very recent, you've talked about, which I thought was quite fascinating, you've talked about in your own life reaching a certain crossroads. 30 is a funny age. Some of us have already got there. And I found that particular crossroads quite interesting. Just some reflections on that, really, I suppose. I mean, it's an interesting analysis of where things are, I suppose. And I suppose it just relates to a more general field, because there's probably a lot of people out there who can probably, not just in Australia, but probably in the UK and other places, who could probably relate to that certain time in your life where you really do reach a crossroads.
Well, absolutely, and that's why I wrote it, because I think probably about the last year, maybe a year and a half, if I'm being completely honest. I've obviously sort of seen 30. You don't think about it when you're sort of in your early to mid-20s. It's
I know what you mean.
Really, sorry.
I know what you mean.
Well, you don't. It's not something that you think about because you're too busy enjoying your 20s. And then you suddenly get to kind of 27 and you think, oh my God, I've only got 3 years left of my 20s. As if there's something really negative about that, as if that's, the end of your life, which it obviously certainly isn't. So, yeah, I think over the last sort of couple of years, I've been sort of looking at, where I am in life, in my career, in my love life. And, has what I've chosen in life, is it going to be, steady for the future? Is it going to ensure that I have a happy and fulfilled future? Which is basically the questions I just kept asking myself. And it was driving me nuts. And I just thought to myself, is it just me? Is it just me that's going through this? Or is this something that, affects more people than I imagine it would? And then I started talking to friends who could suddenly relate. They were going through exactly the same, experience as me, all around the same sort of age. So I just thought, right, okay, instead of, I've hated struggling with this kind of angst almost as I approach 30. So why not help out others and just say it's okay to feel like this, but here's a way of turning, how you're feeling now into something positive and making a few changes. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the blogs that would, could be directed at both men and women. I think it's something that affects a lot of people. There's lucky ones out there that sort of transition into the next decade of their life without any issues. But there is definitely, a population of us that, have a few struggles.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Transition, so.
And another blog on the way shortly, a work in progress, is it?
It's definitely a work in progress. And it actually probably follows on from the 29 blog. I'll give you a little bit of a slice of what it's about. I dog sat about 2 weeks ago. Now, my life has always been about me, myself, and I. I've never had any responsibility. And I got a taste of it a couple of weeks ago, and it's my musings on that. Very interesting encounter. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Coming soon.
Should be fascinating. And I should say at this point, anybody who's interested in reading Alexandra's blog, we have put up a link on the website www.shoreditchradio.co.uk/show/Davis and Watson. You'll go to the website and you will find the link to Alexandra's blog. And I would say to you, it's well worth a read. There is a Facebook page as well. I think it's Kitsch Sister. Is that right? The Facebook page.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's right. Yeah.
do check that out as well on Facebook. So obviously, being based on the other side of the world, it's a very different perspective to obviously the news perspective that we have here. But I think probably there's been one item of news that's probably been dominating the agenda, particularly in Melbourne, is the recent terrorism scare, which I imagine has been quite big news in that part of the world.
Yes, it has. Yes, I've actually been coordinating that coverage most recently. Yes, I think finally terrorism has reached the shores of Australia, and it's rocked the country dramatically. Yeah. We see terror events going on around the world, and now it's on our doorstep. It really does make you think. Yeah.
Has it caused a big reaction over there? I mean, obviously, Australia has been quite involved in world politics, obviously, in the last few years, and they have particularly been involved in certainly the war on terror, on terrorism. Has it caused an outcry from the public, perhaps, that they want Australia to maybe take a much lesser role in world politics, possibly?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's actually made Australia more united with Britain and America, because this war and this Islamic State and its strength and its growth, has got to stop. I think, obviously we had the Sydney siege, and I did the rolling coverage on social media for that. One of our reporters became a bit of a worldwide name, Chris Reason, because our Channel 7 headquarters was actually evacuated during that siege. We were able to gain, entry and a view of the unfolding drama, that no one else had. And I obviously, with my team, coordinated the rolling online coverage. That was a day that no one in Australia will ever forget. I know I certainly won't. I was absolutely gripped from the moment that it started, which was on one of our live TV morning shows, right through until the following day. There was, people that worked straight. Yeah, I think it was about 24, maybe even longer than that, 24 hours longer, solid to get that covered. And I think it really hit Australia in the heart. It was suddenly, we weren't watching pictures of Iraq or Syria or terror plots unfolding in Britain and America. It was on our doorstep in Sydney, one of the biggest cities, in Australia, the most populated. And I think it raised an ire in people, an anger that, we need to fight this because this is just not acceptable. People who were going into the Link Cafe to get their coffee in the morning, as many Australians do, I myself do, and it ended with 2 deaths. So obviously that was kind of one of the biggest, obviously the biggest terror, event in Australia in recent times. And then obviously we've had most recently the plots to the alleged plots for our Anzac commemorations here in Melbourne. So that's obviously been the most recent thing. I think that there was a link to a young British boy, and it's just I think it's shocking, Australia, because those that are involved in these alleged murderous plots are 18,
very
19,
young,
and 14 from the guy that was linked to it from Britain. So I think that there is this united stand up front against terror here. People don't want to shy away and pretend it's not happening here. Just because we're so far removed from the rest of the world, that doesn't mean that they don't want a big part in helping to combat this.
No, absolutely.
Horrendous movement.
No, absolutely. And of course, the other probably big story from the other side of the world at the moment has been obviously the death of the Australian cricket legend Richie Benaud, which of course caused a massive reaction here in Britain because of course he was such a popular figure here. But I know obviously in Australia he was offered a state funeral, which his family turned down. But that shows clearly the kind of recognition that he had as a former Australian cricket captain and broadcaster in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know too much about cricket and that sporting side, but I do know that obviously there was a huge outcry when he passed away. He was the voice of cricket in Australia, and Australians love their cricket, and they love beating the Poms, which is the English, even more.
They certainly do.
Cricket season's horrendous for myself and any other expats that live over in Australia because
I can imagine, actually.
we haven't done so well, have we?
No, we haven't, and we're still not doing very well, to be honest. Mind you, that's a bit of a story when it comes to sport, really. I think we're not the greatest, I think, on the world stage when it comes to sport. In most different sports, I think we tend to struggle. So I'm not surprised.
I've got a message for the English cricket team. They really need to step up their game because it's me and every other expat over in Australia that bears the brunt of it. We don't like losing against the Aussies, and they certainly don't like losing against us. So very competitive.
And of course, the Australians are due here in the summer. Of course, the Ashes will take place here in the summertime. So England really are going to have to up their game if they're going to, do something there. They had a disastrous Cricket World Cup. Australia did get to the final, of course, and beat New Zealand. So that would have that certainly would have put some smiles on some faces back there, I'm sure.
Well, I actually live opposite the MCG, so the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
Oh,
I
there
can
you
see
are.
it from my balcony. So I cannot tell you, I've never heard a louder cheer when they won. It was the most amazing atmosphere. It's hard to describe, but there was definitely some very happy and some very smug faces around Melbourne that day.
Well, I think they love beating the English, but they certainly love beating the New Zealanders just as much, I think, if not more. I think there's a tremendous rivalry.
I don't know. I think that England would be on a very even keel to New Zealand, perhaps more so.
I should say one final question before we let you go is... the weather in England has been pretty good recently. What's the weather been like in Melbourne lately? As you said off air to me, it's been you obviously are heading for your winter, but the winter there is pretty much like our summer, to be quite honest.
I don't know actually. Melbourne does get quite cold, but saying that, we don't see snow unless you kind of go to the ski resorts, but. There's a motto in Melbourne that you can have 4 seasons in one day, and any Aussie that's listening to this will completely understand. I didn't understand that when I first got here. I understood within a couple of days. You can have heat wave in the morning, you can have rain by midday, you can have hail by 4 o'clock, and you can be back in the tropics by 10 o'clock at night. At the moment, we're going into our winter, so it is all, we're on the other side of the world, so it is all, upturned. And yeah, it is starting to get cold. It's very mild yesterday, but it is, starting to get a bit colder, so the coats are starting to come out. But it's crazy weather in Sydney at the moment. We've had a superstorm, they're calling it. The weather has just been out of this world. So that could be coming Melbourne's way. I'm not sure. Hopefully not. But yes, it's definitely a lot warmer than England. We certainly don't see builders taking their shirts off at 25 degrees.
That's a very British thing, that is.
Oh, it's something I miss. It really is. It's something I miss.
No, I think you will be back in London town one day. I think I have that feeling. But it's a great. Obviously, it is a great experience. Being there, it must open up new perspectives. I think especially having been there now for 5 years, it must have really opened some perspectives for you. I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's great. I'd encourage anybody to live in another country. I think that not only learn about another country and another culture almost, but you kind of learn about yourself or are forced to. So, I'd definitely encourage it. And Australia is like a second home now. It's a fantastic place to be.
And you can hear the slight twinge of an Australian accent there, by the way.
I know. My mum keeps saying that to me. She's like, what did you just say? Like, there's a lot of lingo here that obviously doesn't translate to England. So as well as the twang, I've got to start remembering that, you guys don't use no dramas and no worries. So I've got to kind of eject that from my lingo before I'm ever allowed to return home.
Alexandra, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And we will be hearing from you quite regularly on this show across the next year. And we hope to, speak to you every month and give us an update about exactly what's going on. And we also look forward to seeing that next blog up on the website. In fact, I'm setting you a deadline. I hope it's up there by the weekend.
I will do my best. Thank you so much.
Alexandra, thank you very much indeed.
You're listening to Shoreditch Radio. shoreditchradio.co.uk.
And welcome back to the Davis and Watson show here on Shoreditch Radio with me, Liam Davis, and David Watson. That was our Brit Down Under slot, and that was me earlier in the week talking to a former UK journalist and very much working in the Australian media now, Alexandra Baram. We're joined in the studio tonight by comedian, not actress, journalist.
No. Yeah.
That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair.
Daphna Baram. Baram, I should say. Daphna,
it sounds like we're all called Baram today.
Mix up the B's, but it's
Baram,
Daphna
really.
Baram,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I should say at this point, if you've got any thoughts about what we're going to talk about, do feel free to get in touch. Twitter at Shoreditch Radio. Anything that we talk about in the next 20 minutes, Dave?
Yes, indeed. So we're going to talk to Daphna about her upcoming show, which is based in Edinburgh, isn't it?
Well, the show is going to be running in the Edinburgh Fringe. It's not based in Edinburgh as such. It's also going to be running in the Brighton Fringe in May, every Tuesday night at the Blue Man. And there are going to be some previews. Yes, we're going to do some previews in town. The first one on the 8th of May, that's a Friday, at the Rosemary Brunch in Islington.
Okay.
I have one on the 10th of May in Stockwell at the Cavendish Arms, together with comedian Matt Price. The one in Islington is together with Juliet Mayers, brilliant comedian. And I have one on the 27th of May at Dirty Dick's in Bishopsgate. That would be myself and Dane Baptiste, an absolutely fantastic up-and-coming star.
So that would probably be the nearest, Bishopsgate.
No, the nearest one is the 8th of May, Friday.
No, I mean in terms of location.
Oh, in terms of location, yes.
Yeah.
The local one
Dirty
to
Dick's.
this constituency, yes.
Yeah.
Dirty Dick's in Bishopsgate,
And
just
that's
across.
on what date, sorry, again?
27th of May, that's a Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the evening. It costs £5, 2 shows. My show, Something to Declare, and Dane Baptiste's new show. It's
Brilliant.
very promising.
You're certainly busy then, coming up.
I am, yes. It's a very busy time, May, where all the shows are previewing and running towards the big Edinburgh Fringe in the summer, in August.
And can you explain why you've got yourself dressed up like Paddington for the promotional poster?
Well, this show called Something to
Yeah,
Declare
yeah.
Is a show about immigration.
Right.
It's a show about
Hot topic, yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's and also I had to. I felt that I might need to hide, so I wanted to know if I could conceal myself as a bear in case Nigel Farage gets on my case.
Why would he do that?
This is the truth is I just got myself an indefinite leave to remain in this country this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a coming out show, because before that I was keeping quiet so that nobody would pay attention that I'm around. Yeah, and in order to get an indefinite leave to remain, I don't know if you're aware of that, but you need to undergo a test known as the Life in the UK test. Immigrants refer to it as the Englishness test. And I had to. It was hard. I thought it was going to be a walk in the park, but I actually had to learn, and I was a bit nervous about it.
Is that the type of thing where they ask you when the Magna Carta was written? And
There's
like
a bit of that, and then there are a bit of there's some questions that are more designed to make you feel like we've got your number, mate, kind of feeling. Like they say, oh, it's not allowed in this country to conduct genital mutilation or to make somebody get married, which are questions that clearly are meant to say, look.
But they ask you things like, where do Scousers come from and where do Cockneys come
They
from?
don't, which I think is
No?
a big mistake. I think they need to teach you stereotypes, because otherwise how are you going to be able to be a racist and bigoted? How could you go to a football match if you don't know
my wife did this
that the
blessed-
Welsh are supposed to...
My wife's a South American national.
Right.
And she did this blessed test. And in her book that she had, they had those sort of questions sampled.
Really?
And she said, she asked her, what's a Scouser? Someone from Liverpool. Haven't I told you that, And
To be
she said,
fair, I
no,
knew
don't remember you
that.
telling me what a Scouser was.
You didn't tell your wife what this Scouser was. What else are you keeping away from her?
I
Poor
did.
woman.
But she hadn't really remembered it.
I
And
think
anyway,
this is
that-
really important. I think they
yeah,
need
there were
also
cultural
to...
references. At least when at that time, maybe they've changed it, and sort of updated it more. I don't know.
I don't know. They tell you a lot about what to do in pubs, which I think can come in handy. Not that I needed it particularly, but they do ask things like, if you spill somebody's pint at the pub, what happens next? I think they changed the
What's
version.
correct answer?
Well, in Glasgow, they added a new answer, which is "run for your life." In
Are you
Shoreditch.
serious?
Goodness me,
No.
are they actually honestly wasting the taxpayers' money on that?
Listen, what if somebody spills your drink and they don't know they're supposed to buy you a new one? You don't want that. You don't want the kind of foreigners hanging around in your
Absolutely.
local that are going to spill drinks around and not buy you a new one.
Absolutely. Well, what about
And
these
if-
foreigners who don't hold the door open for you?
Oh my God.
terrible.
I mean, in Facebook, whenever I say, what would you like foreigners to know when they come to this country? I thought this would help me write the show. But then I discovered that all you English ever bitch about when it comes to foreigners is that we don't queue properly.
Yes, that's
Listen,
it.
I'm from Israel. We queue in a triangle. This is how we queue. We don't the whole
The queue- I
forming a
didn't think
straight
queues
line.
actually existed. Yeah, I didn't think. I heard that in Hebrew the word doesn't even exist.
Queue? No, of course
no,
it exists, because you need to be able to start a fight around the idea that people are not queuing right. But you don't have this kind of. There you went. I mean, I once walked into a police station to register as an alien, because that's what they call us. And there was. I didn't notice that there was a whole queue of people sitting at the back of me. And then I suddenly heard it. They were going, all the criminals who were waiting at the police station were tutting at me. So then I've learned now. I know
Yeah.
how to tut. Yeah.
So, well, I think the art of queuing actually is dying in this country, but we'll leave that to one side. Maybe they were too late with the.
It is not dying. You're getting old, David. This is what's happening. All old people always think that the young people are not queuing properly. I'm actually amazed what kind of scary people in the middle of the night in this country. Hell angels, people with massive tattoos are queuing. And tutting if you don't queue properly.
Really?
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, I saw something very scary the other day at Walthamstow Central Station. He had sort of lots of piercings all over his face and had a very scary expression on his face. You might have seen him at some
Yet
point.
he queued,
He
surely.
what,
Yet he was queuing.
well, he was just standing there, actually, looking very intimidating.
I don't think in London somebody who's covered with tattoos and piercings is something that anybody even
It's
stops
all
and
over his
looks at.
face. I don't know. I'm not, whatever people want to look like, they can look like, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway,
That was a very posh comment. I don't mind.
am I being middle class and very British?
You're being upper middle class. Just yeah.
God, don't say that.
Yeah, I can tell. This is what qualifies me to have an indefinite leave to remain.
Daphne, I'm going to ask you about what you had as an experience at the age of 39 you had when you survived a heart attack. which is totally off tack.
I had a heart attack and I survived. Can I just say something about the show
please
first?
do, please
If
do.
you don't mind, first, people of Shoreditch, kindly follow me on @MissDComedy, MISSD Comedy, no dots in the middle. And if you could please go there and choose between my two prospective posters for the show. There's one in which I'm smiling and looking very cute, and another one in which I'm looking a bit snidey, and I can't decide between them. So go check it out and cast your vote and get free tickets to come
I
to
vote
stuff.
for the smile.
Everybody does. Like, it just, I look so cute though, which is ridiculous.
No, that's fine. You know, you when they see you live, then they realise that
Exactly,
smile
it was a
deceptive.
lie that the
Yes,
smile.
it's
That
fine.
they've
So-
been conned.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, when I was 39, which was oh my god, it was 6 years ago. I just turned 45.
You don't have to tell everyone your age.
I do now because I used to do this, and until about 2 years ago it worked because I would say I'm 43 and people would go no, and now I say I'm 45 and everybody's like, yeah, all right, figures. Bastards. 39. Yeah, I had a heart attack at the gym. Don't go to the gym. And if you go to the gym, don't smoke. I mean, this is the basics of not getting a heart attack at the gym.
That
I
the
was
problem.
not smoking at the gym, but I was smoking for so long and I was smoking so much that trying to fix that by running was a grave mistake. Nearly ended in my untimely death on the cross trainer. Also, avoid the bloody cross trainer. It's horrible. So yeah, I had a heart attack at the gym. And then I went outside the gym. It was a beautiful day, and I was sitting by a table and fading away. And my friend Ilana came, and I sent her back into the gym to get some help, and they refused to come out and help because I was already out of the gym.
What was the excuse they gave for not coming out?
They said I was already out of the gym. That was they said it's not our responsibility. She's already out of the gym.
So basic humanity doesn't come into
Into fitness
helping
first. Yeah, no, it
Unbelievable.
yeah, it was not. It's not greatest of gyms, I must say. But I was a bit offended. I didn't think that they should have come out because they were a gym. I just thought anybody should.
yeah.
I mean, you know, in Israel, I mean, it's a shit place in all sorts of ways. But you would get 1,000 people basically killing you by trying to save you, and you know,
even if you're a Palestinian.
If you're a Palestinian, half of them would be trying to kill you, and the other half would be trying to save you, or something like that. It would be, or they would kill you and then then remember that they're actually medics in the army or something, and try to save you.
What happened next? I mean, people say. I mean, I've spoken to people and they say it's the most excruciating pain that you could ever
It
imagine.
wasn't really. I had this pain in my shoulder. I actually thought I messed up some muscle at the gym. But what was more alarming was this feeling that I was fading away.
Right.
Which of course I thought was a massive hangover from a party that I was in the week before. And
The night
when I
before.
felt, the reason I knew, because I was sitting there outside, it was sunny and everything, and I was fading away, and so I smoked a cigarette for good measure, and that's when I realized that the pain was in my chest, because I was dragging on the cigarette and I was feeling the pain in my chest, and I thought, oh, what is this, pneumonia? What's happening? I can't have pneumonia if I don't have a cold. All sorts of thoughts like that. And then an ambulance came because my friend Ilana called it, and they were like, yeah, you're having a heart attack, but you're not going to die. And I thought, okay, if I'm not going to die, what drugs are you going to give me on this journey to the hospital? I was amazed by that. This is how I knew not only that I was not going to die, but that I'm not really old yet, even though I'm having a heart attack. Because my first thought was, okay, I'm going to live, check, get the drugs now. This is it. I have 10 minutes. Once I'm in the hospital, I knew by instinct that when I will be in the hospital, there will be no more fun. And that it will not give me any super drugs. But ambulances are good that way. Got loads of morphine and pre-med.
Did you need follow-up treatment?
Yeah, I needed to go to the gym. Basically, the way you fix a heart attack is that you rest for a month and then you go to cardio rehab, so you kind of get fit again. The thing is, I was never again or before as fit as on the day when I had the heart attack. I've just lost massive amount of weight. I was actually skinny. I had a six-pack. I was wearing this kind of Lara Croft outfit. I was brought to the hospital hot. And ever since then, I've been struggling to come to the same levels of fitness. But
Didn't the doctor say something to you which sort of was the kind of wrong advice?
Well, it wasn't so much the wrong advice. She was the doctor before the heart attack, you mean? I'm diabetic. I've got diabetes.
No, in an ironic way. He didn't he say, if you want to stop seeing people like me.
No, he didn't mean it in an ironic way. He said, do not smoke again or we shall meet again. And I had another look at him. And I thought, you should not say these things to women in a certain age. He was a very good-looking doctor with a massive wedding band, as they do. You need to really pay attention when you go to hospitals, because you tend to get a bit misty-eyed with people who save your lives. And so, he might have not been as handsome as I remember, but they're always married. They're normally the woman they're married to is the nurse who's going to be looking after you that night. So be careful. If you want to go to the toilet, you'd better behave. Yeah.
So many people who survive near-death experiences often say they view life differently afterwards. Was this the case with you?
I think a little bit. I don't know if it was an aging. I mean, it was a very dramatic year. I was just about to turn 40. Both my best friends got married. I did their marriage speeches, and I was having
woman.
a heart attack. A best woman speech, whatever. I've done the speeches, best speeches. That, and let's settle on that.
Okay.
And my best friend was having also a baby, and what did I get? A heart attack. This is what I got. So I was a bit. It does get you thinking. You think I'm stuffed. This is what you're thinking. But I think I came to the conclusion that I need to have more fun. I was like, nothing really. I mean, yeah. I think I need. I came to the conclusion that I'm probably not going to live a very long life. So I want to live a lot. And also was getting a little bit depressed, and this is what got me into comedy, really. So my friends who heard my wedding speeches and thought they were very funny, and also there was Chris Morris was there. He's a famous comedy writer. I didn't know who he was at the time.
Brass-eyed guy.
Yeah, that one. And he said to the groom, he was a guest at the wedding, and he said to the groom, he thought I was a stand-up comedian then, and I wasn't. So they bought me this comedy course for my 40th birthday and made me do it. So it's not my fault that I'm doing it. If anybody wants to complain, go see my friend Kit. It's or Chris Morris. It's them who've done it.
Very good.
Yeah,
that's great. You've been back to Israel recently.
Yeah, I just went to see my family.
How was that? You did some performing in front of an Israeli audience.
Oh my God, yeah, I did. Okay, I have my brother Aviatar was 20 years younger than me, and he's kind of cool. He's a DJ, and he's very interested in stand-up comedy. He knew much more about stand-up comedy than I did when I started doing it. I suspect he still does. And he dragged me to a little pub in Jerusalem, where pretty much all the secular community of Jerusalem huddles, at least the younger generation. It's a tiny, tiny pub called The Radio. And they have a radio studio there.
Okay.
That is at the moment, I think, inoperative. And they managed to just cram about 25 people there for an open mic night. And I said, I'll just come watch, because I don't have a comedy set in Hebrew. I started doing it in England. I've never done it in Israel. It turned out that all his mates have heard from him that I, once upon a time, was on a lineup with Dylan Moran at the Stand in Glasgow. And they were all getting super excited about that. And they were like, no, we want to see it. So this actually made things worse. So I had to make up a Hebrew set and do it, sort of on the spot, which was actually great fun. It was bizarrely liberating to do comedy in your own native language, even though I was translating in my head from my English set. And they were lovely. They were kind of Jerusalem hipsters, which is like basically the same as Shoreditch hipsters, just tanned, I guess. It was fun. It was. I enjoyed that. It was a good experience. Of course, Israel itself was a dire experience. It was just after the elections. The mood amongst my friends who are left-leaning was very, very dire indeed with this new government and everything that's going on. But it was great to see my family. It was a nice time back.
A Palestinian friend of mine says that any Israeli with a conscience should just leave the country. What would you say to that?
I think it's. I understand why they say that, and I don't think that this is the case. I mean, I definitely would not encourage anybody to immigrate there, and I would definitely encourage everybody to object to the government and to the policies, and also to the very founding ideology of the State of Israel. I mean, I'm an anti-Zionist, and I think anybody with a conscience should be. But this does not mean that there is not a nation or a group of people who were born in Israel and who are Israelis. Such a people exist. They might need to democratize themselves. Of course, they need to democratize themselves. Israel should become a country for all its inhabitants, for all its citizens. It should, basically shake off the racism that is the premise of the existence of the country. But to say to all the people who leave, many people cannot afford to leave. It's very, very hard. I've just spent 14 years trying to get an indefinite leave to remain in this country. And I'm a middle-class person, and I'm resourceful, and all sorts of... It's not an easy thing to do to immigrate out of a country nowadays, especially a country that is not in Europe or in America. So I think it's... I can totally understand the Palestinian fantasy to have the Israelis disappear one day, but they're not going to disappear any more than the fantasy of some Israelis that the Palestinians are going to disappear is going to happen. Something else needs to happen. These two people need to learn to live
Did you see that happening?
together.
Did you see any sort of glimmers of hope? Because, I mean, the recent Israeli election...
No, the short answer is no. The long answer is also no. But no, it's not even funny. No, but I just want to say this. I mean, I know that this sounds a little bit... it's not a good answer, but we've seen stranger things happen than the Israeli and Palestinians sorting it out. The world needs to sort it out, in my opinion. What the world needs to do is to sort Israel out. This is not... I very much object to, presenting this situation as the Palestinians are bad kids and the Israelis are bad kids, and they need to know there is an oppressing side to this, which is Israel, and there is an oppressed side to this, which is the Palestinians, and there is a world that stands by watching and buys quite a lot of Israel's lies about itself. But, and maybe that's the encouraging bit, less and less so. People more and more understand that Israel is self-righteous and that Israel is a liar in the international game and that Israel claims a place as the only democracy in the Middle East while it oppresses other people. And I think the world is beginning to get fed up. But the thing is, you know what? I've been here for 14 years and every year I give various radio interviews and I always say, I think the world is beginning to get fed up with Israel's lies. And it's not happening fast enough, Mr. Obama.
Where do you stand on this tail wagging the dog debate? I mean, some people say that America is Israel's sponsor. Therefore, if America wanted Israel to do as they told them to do and stop the conflict, then America could do that.
Right, that's my position. Any other position is anti-Semitic, okay? Like, honestly, I mean, I'm sick and tired of this. I mean, there are like 6 million Jews there. They are not wagging America. There is no way that they can wag America, and they're not wagging America. The Americans are enabling the Israelis to do what they do. And the Americans have enabled previous allies before to do worse things. The Americans were allies with South Africa, and they were allies with Chile, and they were allies with... they are sponsoring bad regimes and even worse regimes than Israel. Israel is not wagging America.
But without perhaps going over our thing, what happened to Obama's plan to bring peace to the Middle East then?
What happened to all his predecessors' plans to bring peace to the Middle East? I mean, I think every American president starts with some big idea of doing it and then realizes that it's a pain in the ass and that maybe it could do something else to become popular, because this is not going to make anybody popular. And I do not think that he made any serious attempts.
Well, he made the grand declaration that he was going to bring peace to the Middle East and he was going to close Guantanamo Bay.
Has he? I mean,
and he hasn't managed to do either.
He brought a few wars, as far as I've managed to count.
True,
He hasn't. And you know what? The thing is that the Democrats are always a disappointment in that sense. Sometimes, actually, it's the Republicans who are less sentimental about Israel and can put some more pressure. Not enough, but more. But this is also changing a little bit. I mean, the Republicans and Netanyahu are bound together, as we've all seen when he came to the Congress and got this shockingly welcoming welcome. Yes. So
we have to wind up, I'm afraid, Daphne. I wish we could continue, and maybe we will if you'd like to come back in 2 weeks' time.
Also, you got me in this studio.
Liam's got football commitments, and
right.
So in 2 weeks' time, when Chelsea are playing Liverpool, you can come in and tell us a bit more about your thoughts on the Middle East. And that was just after the elections as well.
Of course, will have happened by then.
Oh, yeah.
And you can give us your
I might get thrown out.
Good analysis there for that.
But come see my show. Come see Something to Declare. I've got loads of stuff to declare.
Something to declare.
So, definitely the closest one to Shoreditch is the 27th of April at Dirty Dick's. But also the Rosemary...
April, so that's...
May. 27th of May, a Wednesday, Dirty Dick's. But also there's one on the 8th of May at the Rosemary branch in Islington, which is the nearest part to Shoreditch of Islington. So it's going to be lovely as well.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Next week we'll have an election special where we'll be joined by Keith Raffin, former Conservative and Liberal Democrat MP, and also Catherine West, whom we had last week on the show. But looking forward to that. And possibly one more guest. we'll see. Those two are definitely booked. Liam, anything else to say?
No, I think you've pretty much summed it up.
Brilliant.
Well, I'll be back soon, and Dave will be back next week.
Yep. Look forward to speaking to you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Daphna.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Shoreditch Radio. ShoreditchRadio.co.uk.